Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Unafraid, the podcast that shares stories from the queer community. I'm Jay. I'm going to be your host today, and we are still in the midst of the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. But thankfully for content creators like myself and many others, we're still able to work and produce content for you to consume and to hopefully entertain you. Before we get going, I do want to give a big shout out to the show's new sponsor, Rebecca Jonesy, author of the Mabs Doll series, where the Fae know that every person is unique and all love is valid. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show, Rebecca. You have been a great ally, and I really appreciate it. And we have a very special guest today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Katy Montgomerie. I'm a trans woman, and I spend a lot of time arguing about feminism and LGBT rights. And I'm also a metalhead and an enthusiast of animals, and particularly insects.
I like animals and insects. This is great. You're describing me. I love it.
Oh, amazing! I didn't know you liked insects as well. I love insects. They're so cool.
Oh yes, I love them. They're fascinating. They really are such incredible creatures. They are. Yeah. So and you're coming to us from across the pond, right? You're in the UK.
Yeah, I'm in Bristol, UK,
Okay.
and it's nice and sunny here. Oh, and this is Poppy.
Oh, hi, Poppy. How are you?
I just had times.
Mine was just on my lap a couple minutes ago. I'm sure she'll come in and visit us soon. So that's are you guys? What's that?
I hope she's not too distracting.
No, not at all. Are you all pretty locked down over there still?
Yeah, everything's still locked down here. We've got like the worst deaths per capita in Europe, or maybe even the world now. So it's pretty bad in the UK. They're talking about getting rid of the lockdown and just sending people back in England anyway. There's just no one knows what's going on. Wales and Scotland are still being quite strict with it. But England was just kind of like, if you want to go back to work, do, but you shouldn't if you don't, and maybe don't if you do, and no one knows. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll get worse.
Okay. Are you working, or are you still home?
Yeah, I can work from home. I'm an engineer, so it's mainly programming.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, speaking of lockdown, you were talking to me how one of your favorite festivals has been has had to be canceled. The Metal Days festival.
All of them have now been cancelled, but yeah, I'm particularly sad about Metal Days. Yeah, do you want me to say about it, or?
Well, I do. You had a really cool story about going to Metal Days, and I think we'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So Metal Days is one of a few music festivals I try to go to every year in Europe, and it's in Slovenia, which is a really nice, quiet, small country. And it's in the mountains, in like forested mountains, where like two glacial rivers meet, and there's like a beach, and the water is like crystal clear. It's absolute perfection. Then, to make it even better, there's a week-long music festival there where loads of metalheads go, and it's just incredible. You spend all day getting drunk and floating down the river and shouting at people, and then just as the sun starts going down, all the bands start up, and then the music goes on till like 3 a.m. or something, and then the sun comes out at 7 a.m. and it's 30 degrees and it's too hot to sleep, so you just do it all again, and it's just 7 days of that, which is tiring, but it's just so good. Like it's absolutely incredible. It's the best like thing in my life, which is why I'm so sad that it's been cancelled this year. Yeah, it's great. I went last year, which was it's a challenge going as a trans woman, or I guess as a trans person in general, as because of the rivers and you spend so much time on the water. There's obviously lots of swimwear time, and that's optional. You could spend the whole day in the forest or on the beach, or watching the bands or whatever. But I find it hard to say no to getting drunk in the river. So
it is the best.
Yeah, it's just so good. And what's great about this as well is because it's glacial water and water coming in from the mountains, it's freezing. So the water temperature is like 5 degrees or something, and the air temperature is like 35. So you get in the water to cool off, and it's like freezing, and then you've carried all these like beers and stuff down with you, and you can just put them in the water, and they just float down with you slowly, and they get like ice chilled because the water's so cold. So it's so good.
Oh my God, that sounds awesome.
I strongly recommend it. Yeah, it's so fun. But so that means that you need to do lots of swimwear, and being comfortable in swimwear is, it's difficult for a lot of people, but obviously trans people often have their own issues to do with which bits they want to put on display and which they don't.
Were
Sorry?
you early in your transition when you went there, or were you?
I've actually been either 2 or 3 times since I've come out.
Okay.
I think 3 times since I've come out, and and a few times before then. And so last year, I was quite far in, and I'd already had like some surgery on my face, and I've been hormones for ages and stuff. So I felt quite confident, and I felt like it was my year that I was most confident and just in the zone and stuff. But in previous years, I haven't been, and so I've had to be a lot more strategic with my swimwear choices. And also, like early on, I was still quite heavily relying on makeup to pass, and like still having to shave and stuff, which was horrible. And that when you're in extreme conditions like 35 degrees and 7 days long and camping and all this kind of stuff, you need to be like have that not just sweat off in the first 10 minutes. So I did a lot of research into the most waterproof, mosh-proof, beer-proof makeup that you can get.
Mosh-proof. I freaking love that. Is that actually a marketing thing? Is there mosh-proof makeup?
I think that I should, like, if any brands are out there wanting to sponsor like the ultimate mosh warrior princess to market their makeup, then come to me. There's none that I've seen marketed as mosh makeup. That's potentially a good business venture. I found a selection of products and different brands where, like this is the most waterproof eyeliner I could find, and this is the most waterproof mascara, and all these kind of things. So
that's awesome. So you felt more confident. You went there, you were in your swimwear, and as the festival went on, did your confidence stay? I mean, did it grow?
Yes, and I had one last year. I had one incident, I guess, which was maybe on the 3rd day. It was like 3 a.m. and I was with all my friends. I've got a side note about that in a sec. I was with my friends, and we were talking to some random people. At music festivals, you just go and talk to random people and stuff. And I was totally trashed. And we were talking to these German guys, and sometimes Germans are a little bit blunt. And this guy was just stopped me in the middle of me talking and said, "Oh, I'm confused because I'm seeing such a beautiful woman, but I'm hearing," and I was like, "Oh no, don't do this." It's like, obviously my voice has slipped a bit. Like, I'm a bit insecure about my voice anyway. And that was a bit stressful. But apart from that one incident, and he didn't actually say anything, and the conversation just ended, and we just called it a night at that point. And it wasn't a big deal. But apart from that, I really felt like I was, confident, and it all worked out and stuff, which is great. But saying about friends, one of the extra challenges on top of this, I didn't make this any easier. So we're already at a 7-day music festival that's all swimwear and stuff. So it just turned out that the people I were going with all kind of pulled out one at a time for different reasons, and I ended up camping like on my own. But I knew some people kind of from previous years, and I just messaged them on Facebook and was like, "Oh, do you have a space to camp with you?" I just ended up camping with a whole new group and like made friends with all of them and had this amazing time. So that also inspired me with confidence, just walking into a camp with like 50 people, and they were all just like, "Come and join in, here's a beer, let me help you put up your tent, what's your favorite band, I love your t-shirt." And yeah, it was just incredible. Like the whole time, the people there were just amazing, and like it's so international. So I'm always a bit worried on the sort of trans angle as well, that like you get people from countries literally from the entire world, and I don't know what necessarily the understanding of trans people will be there in general. But metalheads are usually just like accepting, thoughtful, and understanding people in general. So,
which is kind of funny. I think that people on the outside look at metalheads as very, very scary individuals, but I
yeah,
think it's more of they're just really protective of each other.
yeah,
So
definitely. And
that's
there's
so
definitely this kind of like, if you don't hurt me, I won't hurt you kind of vibe. Like, you respect me, I respect you, and that's all we need. Which is, I appreciate that. So,
well, that's awesome. So what kind of bands were there last year then? What were some of the highlights?
gosh, I should consult my list before I
You
say
don't
it's
you
bad.
don't just know.
I probably could know. Oh mate, I don't want to just sit here going for the next 10 minutes. I tell you
It was
what.
good. It was good though. Good music.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Like it's I think it's like 10,000 people, so it's a fairly small-ish festival. And they usually book like decent metal bands, not the biggest metal bands. You don't get people like Metallica there, but you get like maybe the next rung down there. So I do actually have a list here. Some of my highlights: Soilwork, Decapitated, Dream Theater, Kalma, Arch Enemy, While She Sleeps, Alkaloid. There's quite a lot of good bands there. Fintroll. I don't know if you've heard of any of those, but
I haven't. My metal was like back in high school, and it was Metallica or Nine Inch Nails or Megadeth, and the
mm,
old guys, really old
well,
guys.
I
But
still love all of those too. So, but this is like a step down. So those ones will play the big festivals like Wacken Open Air and Download and things, which are big European festivals with like 100,000 people. And then the next sort of rung down of festivals was like 10 to 50,000 size ones will get this next rung of metal bands, which is my favorite ones. That because like
yeah.
I do like the big classics, but it's the sort of the fresher, younger ones are
Yeah.
more fun.
When my wife and I went and saw Metallica, I don't know, 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago here in Michigan, and they were great. They sounded great, and of course, everyone knows all of their music,
Yeah.
but their opening bands were Volbeat and Avenged Sevenfold,
Yeah.
who were also bands that I really enjoyed. And I thought that Volbeat, who was still really small at the time, I was like, man, what a freaking amazing show they put on.
They
It's
are a good live band, definitely.
yeah, they were so great. And it's not, hardcore metal, but it was so cool. And I think I enjoyed the opening acts more than I did once everybody had finally crammed into the stadium
Right.
to see
Yeah.
Metallica, because you could breathe a little bit better. But what was the I don't know, what do you think the best part of that festival was for you?
Um, it's just so much. I mean, like saying about moshing. I mean, I often say to other metalheads that I live to mosh, and it's one of my favorite things. So I guess for anyone listening who doesn't really know or has the wrong idea of moshing, I usually describe moshing as full contact dancing. So
I
it's
like
like
it.
dancing, but you just kind of hit into each other a bit, and that there's a whole range of it. There's everything from like sort of 70s punk jumping up and down on the spot. That's kind of pop punk end of things as well, all the way through to like this just looks like fighting
Mhm.
craziness, and there's a whole range in between. And my favorite's somewhere in the middle there, which is usually what you get for things like thrash metal. And it's just you're part of the music, like it sounds really generic, but like the music sort of controlling you. And when you know all the songs and all the pace, and it's just really fast paced, and there's loads of energy, and everyone else in this circle of bodies knows exactly the same things, and you can all feel it together, and it's just like raw passion. And it's there's nothing like holding you back. There is actually a lot of like unwritten rules to moshing, like you shouldn't be there to hurt people. If someone falls down, you pick them up. There's a lot of safety things. And because if someone goes into the mosh pit and breaks a rule, like people like police it hard. You know, if someone starts kicking or something, they are out in a second because there are so many bigger or older metalheads who know what's going on. And I just think sometimes when I'm in a mosh pit and there'll be 50 people I don't know and 10 people that I know really well, and I'm 4 drinks in, and it's like the middle of summer, and there's some thrash metal playing, and there's a bit where my favorite song comes in, like, or it's Municipal Waste, like in my background picture, and like there's just some bit, and just you start running around in a circle, and you can barely even breathe because you're running so fast, and it's just so good. I think that's like the highlight, the peak of my life is in the mosh pit with my friends. So
that is the best description of a mosh pit I've ever heard. It really is, because for I don't know, for all the folk music people out there, probably look at mosh pits and are terrified. Um, but yeah, you know, it's you're surrendering control of yourself to the music, and that's just such a beautiful thing to be able to give up that control for a little while. That's
yeah,
awesome, though.
it is freeing. It's freeing in lots of senses because obviously, like, it's a physical energy thing, and you get the endorphins and stuff, and but also because it's so fast and energetic, it clears your mind completely. It's the only thing that you're focused on is just the music, and yeah, it's like therapy as well, I guess.
That's awesome. And you went home with new friends, it sounds like.
Yeah, amazing people. Like, if anyone listening, you're amazing. There's just so many amazing people I've met, and we were all planning to camp again together this year, until it was cancelled. So hopefully next year, which will be great. Yeah, it was great.
Well, that's awesome. What a fun experience. And I would be I am a very anxious person, so I would, you know, going into large crowds already is tough, but you know, I do it and I'll do it. And I do love camping, but just the idea of inviting yourself to camp with people you don't know that well, oh my gosh, I would probably curl up on the ground and just like hide from everyone. It'd be so scary for me.
Like, I was scared. I mean, I guess how I've described it kind of makes me sound a bit fearless, but you know, I was.
You sound like a badass.
There's points where I'm scared. No, like, I've been to, I don't know how many music festivals. I mean, this year is going to be the first year that I haven't been to a music festival since 2006, and I, you know, try and go to 2 or 3 every year. So I've been to quite a few. So I'm very comfortable in that kind of space. I'm comfortable around metalheads. It's one I've been to before. Like, I know the rules and all this kind of stuff. But it definitely was. I was anxious at points until, you know, until someone's walked up to you and said, "You look like a friend. Come and have a drink with us." And then all of a sudden, it's just you know, you don't worry anymore, which is great. But to make things even more stressful, in case you think that wasn't stressful enough, I actually originally last year didn't plan to go because so it's 7 days, it's Saturday till Saturday, and I had a hen party, which is what we call bachelorette parties, which was on the Friday and the Saturday, and that was in the UK. Then I had Metro Days, which was in Slovenia, and then on the next Saturday, I had a wedding in the UK. So I actually went to a bachelorette party for 48 hours and did some drinking, and then I drove straight from there to the airport, and then I flew to Italy, then went to Slovenia, did this thing, and then I flew home straight from there, straight back home, and then all of my friends who were going to the wedding, different group of friends, all came and stayed at my house, and then we all went to the wedding. So,
oh my God.
And just one more layer of stress on top of that, the flight home was EasyJet, and so they cancelled it. So all of a sudden I had like less than 24 hours to plan an entirely new route back, from Slovenia to Bristol, which was stressful, but I did it, so I'm happy.
You love it though. You love the adventure, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
That's what it sounds like. Oh, that's so cool. Oh my God. That sounds like my wife so much. And I am so timid and she is so not. She would have been like, yeah, that sounds like an excellent idea. She would just get on a plane and go anywhere without, you know, without any plan at all. Oh, that's cool. Well, you said you do a lot of speaking out on Twitter about feminism and LGBTQ
Mhm.
rights. Tell me a little bit about how that started. How did you get into it?
Yeah, well, I guess like I guess an not I am an argumentative person. Not confrontationally. I'm a very unconfrontational person, and in real life, I don't do confrontations. But if someone says something that's wrong or misinformed or logically incorrect, then I find it really hard to not like say something, which is good and bad for different reasons. But I mean, in my life, I've argued about other things which are important to me. And for example, music. And someone will say, oh, this, and this, and I'll be like, well, that's not true because this, whatever, and we can have a discussion about it. And I made a profile on Twitter in order to make friends with other trans people because when I first came out, I'd never met a trans person in my life, and it was about I don't know, 18 months or a year, 2 years before I did actually meet another trans person. Um, and when you're on Twitter, you meet loads of amazing trans people. I've made so many friends through it, but there were just loads of people who are just saying things that are just nonsense. Like there's so much misinformation about trans people. You'll get someone who will just say stuff that's just laughably false. They'll say something like, you know, all trans women are gay men, and you're like, even if you're making some argument about them being men or whatever, like however you look at this, half of trans people are gay and half are straight. That's just a fact. There's no opinion involved in here. That's just so someone will say something like that, and I'll just step in and I'll be like, well, no, because of this. Like now we can update your worldview, which I think's a bit naive of me because they never do, and then they always double down. And I find it hard to drop it when someone says something wrong. I'll try and explain it to them, and then they'll disagree, and then I'll keep going, and then eventually I'll get them to say something that's a direct logical contradiction of what they've said before, and I'll link it back to them, and then I'm like, yeah. But I mean, honestly, that's it. That's all I've ever done on Twitter is
Okay.
I'll see someone who's said something incorrect about something I care about, which is thrash metal, trans people, or ants, basically. And then I step in and just say, well, here is the fact that doesn't fit with your worldview, so your worldview is wrong. And that's just got me to where I am now.
Well, and
And
I'm
yeah,
looking at your Twitter now, 28,000 followers.
yeah,
That
just hit
that is
28,000 yesterday, I think.
that's a lot of people listening to you. I mean, there's a lot of
It
people that like hearing you argue about stuff. That's
is. Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm not really sure why anyone does. I guess there is a few things I like following other trans people who do arguing for, which is just seeing people stand up to misinformation and horrible views on trans people. If someone can just without being challenged say something horrible about trans people, then it makes you kind of feel helpless. You're like, this person has just said something disgusting and no one's calling them out on it. Why? Like everyone should be calling them out on this. And I think often because people are scared to do it, and if they just see someone just saying no, this is wrong, then it can be inspiring. It inspires me to see other people do that anyway. So I guess that's one of the angles.
well, and that's it's something I'm trying to do a little bit with my own personal friends that can be a challenge is that because I don't befriend people that say homophobic or racist or transphobic things, but um, sometimes people say things that they don't know are
Hmm.
wrong or don't understand why, and so
It's
I've been
usually ignorance.
yeah, and I'm trying to gently correct people who I'm friends with because I am also a very non-confrontational person, especially if
Hmm.
people that I know in the real world. But it's kind of like I've just got to work towards getting at least the people I know a little bit more educated about things so that they can be around me more comfortably. Um, and most of the people who know me don't even know how I identify. So I'm just trying to prepare people to
Yeah.
not be huge jackasses when they do find out more about me. But no, I think that, and oh God, the whole world's online, so I think it's the biggest and best platform for educating people. One thing I have noticed on Twitter though, um, and it's sad, is that there's, I mean, Twitter is a really rowdy place already. But
Yeah.
I will see a lot of fighting between trans people or people in the queer community, and
Mm.
just jumping on each other's back about something when we could just be educating people instead of slamming them. And it's strange because there are so many there are so many truly nasty people out there that we could be we could be directing that anger towards. Why is it you think that, on Twitter especially, it's so easy for people to kind of turn against each other, even their allies?
I think at least one aspect of it is that humans like to hate things that are most similar to them. Like, because it's when you're so close that there's just one little thing, and that often you don't write them off, I guess. Like when someone says something when their beliefs are just totally out of line with you, then they're just wrong, they're an idiot, doesn't matter. But when someone comes over and they agree with you almost everything, but then they have this one fundamental difference, you feel like you need to engage them, I guess. Yeah, maybe it's because maybe it's out of respect, I guess. But I think it's true in all aspects of humans. I mean, if you look at any country in the world, the countries they hate the most are the ones next to them. And if you're from the other side of the world, you can't even tell the difference. I mean, lots of people don't even know the difference between like Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, Wales, and we've all got all these rivalries in between each other, and we all hate the French as well. And like, it's just a historic thing. You hate the people who are close to you because from a distance, no one will be able to tell the difference between any of them. Um, and on the subject of music, another classic is metalheads and hardcore people slash punks. They often, to outsiders, their music sounds the same. It's like energetic, aggressive, whatever, and they hate each other. Like, it's a total clash. They fight each other. They don't like each other's music. Everything. And I think it's similar with this when LGBT people have similar understandings of the world. They just want to be allowed to exist. But they do respect that from each other in general, but then when they have a view that kind of clashes, then you much more likely to call them out on it, perhaps. I don't know, I'm kind of theorizing, I guess.
No, no, and I think that's all you can really do about it. I mean, it's just, weird human stuff, the
Mm,
human condition. And I talked to a person years back, when I was doing a little bit of trying to understand more about racism, and so I talked to him, and he was telling me that in within communities that have been oppressed, um, even a community that has been oppressed will find another smaller, weaker community to lash out against and to oppress, to try to assert some kind of control because they've
mm.
had control stripped away from them, which is really kind of a heartbreaking realization when that happens, and so maybe that's a similar thing too. But oh yeah, I didn't want to talk about bummer stuff. How did I get in on that? I don't know.
What happens as soon as you talk about Twitter, the mood changes. It's a horrible place. Don't go there.
Oh my God, it's brutal. It's just like Goodreads for authors. I'm an author. You don't want to go on Goodreads, man. They're frickin'
No?
savages. They
Oh,
are
really?
horrible. You got to stay away from it. Oh, so what are the some of the things that do you have any kind of long-term goals as far as what you're going to do for, social outreach or anything like that with your Twitter? Because you've built a huge platform now.
Yeah.
You can really do a lot with it.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's it's kind of cool, I guess, to have a large platform. But I mean, the only real value I see in it is beyond making friends is to helping people and teaching people about feminism and LGBT rights. And I would love to like leverage it for that. It's really hard to know how the best way is to do that, because I mean, arguing, I think, to some degree sometimes helps, because it's good to provide counter arguments that people wouldn't know otherwise. But I don't know if it's the best use of my time and resources. And I've been thinking about, or I've just started pivoting to YouTube, and maybe making sort of videos which do whole rundowns of arguments, a bit like how you might get like someone will do a video debunking flat earth or something, and it'll be like a 10-minute video where they present some common arguments and then just explain why they don't make sense. And I think that might be useful.
Okay.
So that'd be good. And I guess,
do you have your channel up yet? Your YouTube channel, or not yet?
yes, I have a YouTube channel, and it's, if you just search Katy Montgomerie, spelled Katy and then Montgomerie, so that I and the Y are the other way around to what you want to spell it. But it's just the same as my Twitter and the same as anything else, really. And
Okay.
I've got a few videos. I've done a few, been guest on a few other shows and talked about LGBT issues. So I think hopefully that can help. But I guess one of the issues I'm faced with is that I'm doing this because I feel like I have to an extent, because I want to teach people. I want to say, you know, this trans people are the same as everyone else, just let them live, and that's great. And it's interesting if someone wants to ask me questions about it, I'm interested to say, but I don't want it to be my life, and I don't want to be a target, and I don't want to deal with lots of the like fallout from it. So I'm constantly deciding what it is I exactly want to do.
Those are
And I think,
valid
sorry.
concerns, because if
Mm,
they're very valid concerns, especially if your life becomes online advocacy. And God, I was just talking to someone earlier today about this, but my friend Amanda Jete Knox, who's a trans rights advocate, has experienced the same canceling kind of thing because of some type of argument that happened, and it was bitter and horrific and terrible for her, and so she's had to take a step back, and this is something that was her whole life, is fighting for trans rights.
mm,
And so it can be, I mean, it can be brutal, and I think that you have to have a bit of a wall as
for
well.
sure.
But then how do you have that wall when you're dealing with something so personal and intimate? I mean, that's
It
tough.
is difficult. How I personally do it is I keep my metal world separate from everything else. And obviously, like wherever I go, I am a trans person going there, and that does mean that sometimes I have to answer questions and what have you. But I like on Facebook, I only talk to my metal friends, and when I go to festivals, I just don't talk about it if I can avoid it. And it really reminds me that I'm not just living just to defend myself. Like I do have an existence beyond fighting for my own existence, which is, it's really good and it's really refreshing. And I think that's, lockdowns made that a bit more difficult this year, but certainly last year when I was, flying to places and running around in circles and stuff, it's such a break to not go on, not have to fight for your own freedom, whatever, however you want to describe it. Yeah, so that's how I do it anyway.
I like that. And I have a video request for you, unless you've already done it, and
Yeah.
you may have, because I haven't been on your YouTube channel yet. I would really like an easy to understand video for people on why feminism should be intersectional, why it should be inclusive of everyone, because I think that some people don't understand, and there are some people that are just turfs and they're assholes, but I think that some people genuinely don't understand why, and I think
Sure.
that that would be a useful resource for people. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's definitely the kind of thing that I think could be interesting. And I feel like I know enough to at least blag some kind of something. Um, I mean, I guess my short version would be okay. I guess it depends who I'm targeting it for, because to some people you can say, well, you know, everyone should be equal, and that's enough of an argument. But for other people, that isn't enough of an argument. You kind of want to present like a logical backing for that. And I guess when you're starting from the position of some kind of understanding of feminism, I would usually say, you know, these things that you're noticing, these patterns you're noticing where there are pressures on women that are different to the pressures on men, and they are causing these injustices and inequalities, that exact same like framework, you don't need to do any modifying at all. You can just apply it to other groups. You can just also use that to look at race or sexuality or all kinds of things, and they're not exactly the same, and every single one has their own unique histories and twists and turns. But if you're saying there's a societal pressure which is stopping me from living as good a life as this other person, and I think that should be fixed, and the root of the problem is this, then you should be able to do exactly that exact same logical argument for everything. And that's kind of my main argument for intersectionality.
I like it.
Yeah, I could definitely flesh that out into a more thorough video.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one. I think people need to hear that, really, and especially the old white guys. Old white guys, please listen to that episode because you need to freaking hear it.
I guess this will probably sound like a privileged, arrogant thing to say, but I guess I can sympathize with them to an extent, because, you know, as I myself grew up as like at least seen to everyone else as a boy, and there were some issues that like half the world experienced that I wasn't even aware of growing up, and like all young girls quite early on become intimately aware with some kind of sexual harassment or just leeriness or something, that where you're not just aware of the problem, someone's not just told you it, you felt it. And that was just, you know, something that I didn't. And I think when you get to like 60 and you've never felt leeriness for your sex or gender, and you've never had someone judging you for your sexuality, and you've never had someone looking at you for your race or whatever and treating you worse, you can be aware of it. Someone can say, oh, racism exists, and you can be like, yeah, whatever. You know, I'm sure it's bad in some places, but it's not bad where I live. But it's just because you've never felt it, you just can't empathize until you have personally experienced something. And I think being both a woman and trans has made me quite aware of other people's struggles, just because I notice they're saying the same kind of things that I'm saying, and they're frustrated about the same kind of things where, oh, you know, white people aren't even aware of this problem. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm saying about cis people. So perhaps I should listen and try and get my understanding from the trans cis argument and move over to the white versus, you know, people of color.
Did you just say perhaps we should start to listen and understand?
Yeah, I don't know. It's an idea that I'm just floating. Maybe I'll do a YouTube video about that. Sorry, it's probably a really obvious thing to say. I'm just kind of rambling.
I love it. You know what? Listening and understanding, that's what we all gotta do. You're absolutely right. Katy, it has been fantastic chatting with you today. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I'm not sure, really. I'm going to my agenda.
I say the floor is yours if you want anything else to talk about, anything else. Otherwise, we're good to go.
I guess I would say, if I'm finishing with one last line, there's a really cool species of ant which doesn't actually produce any of its own workers, and it just has kings and queens, and it produces a pheromone identical to another species of ant. And what they do is they just walk into the nest and kill the queen, and then all of the workers that used to work for the old queen now work for a totally new one, which is a totally different species, and they look after the new eggs. The eggs will hatch out in their queens, and they just fly off and their nest dies. Anyway, that's my insect fact of the day.
I like it. I love it.
They're like cuckoos, but ants.
That's fantastic. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching and listening today. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Katy, for coming on the
Thank
show. It
you
was
very much for
great.
having me.
You're
It's
very
been great.
welcome. All right, everybody. Until next time, stay safe and stay strong. Bye.
Bye.